The planet was quiet. Soft winds whispered through the golden grass, and the twin moons floated above, like silent guardians. In the distance, the village lights flickered dim and warm, nestled into the hillside. No tech, no weapon turrets, no shield domes, just old wood, stone, and faith in peace. They were called the Alari, tall, gentle, witty beings with skin like worn marble and voices that hummed instead of spoke. Farmers, healers, not built for war, not even for conflict. The galaxy barely noticed them, and that suited the Alari just fine until the boy came. He stumbled into their lives on the edge of death, a 6-year-old human, half frozen, barely breathing, cradling a shredded emergency pack in one bloodied hand. The dropship he'd been on had crashed somewhere past the northern ridge, the wreckage too twisted to tell if anyone else survived. The Alari found him by the river, his tiny fingers curled around a soldier's dog tag. They had no idea what the symbol meant, those engraved letters. Property of Earth Armed Forces. They just knew he was hurt and scared and alone, so they took him in. They wrapped him in woven cloth, fed him broth with slow, careful hands, and sang to him when he cried at night. One Alari elder, Tommen, never left his side. The boy couldn't pronounce his name right, kept calling him Tama. The others chuckled, and the name stuck. Over time, the boy healed. He laughed again. He played in the meadows with the Alari younglings, chasing their glowing wind kites. He learned their ways. He stopped flinching when he heard thunder. But peace has enemies. Word spread across the outer colonies. A human child alone, unclaimed, vulnerable, and where rumors go, slavers follow. They came in the night, no warning, no mercy. A skiff of armed raiders, Scarathi, cold-blooded flesh dealers with bone piercings and metal-clawed boots. They stormed the village like wolves among sheep. The Alari didn't fight. They didn't even know how, but Tommen stood in their way. When they grabbed the child, Tommen threw himself between the boy and the slaver's blade. The wound was deep across his chest, but he didn't move. He shielded the boy with his body as the others cried out, pleaded, begged. The slavers laughed. Protecting a stray human. He's worth more than all of you combined. Tommen didn't speak their language. He didn't have to. He wrapped his arms around the child tighter. They beat him for it. They dragged the child away anyway, and that would have been the end of the story, like it was for 100 other nameless children lost in the void. But this child had a name, and more importantly, he had a beacon embedded in his neck. 17 hours later, the skies above the Alari home world turned black. Clouds didn't form that fast. These weren't clouds, they were ships. Earth's 7th Fleet, led by the dreadnought Resolute. Blade dropped from warp without a whisper, no announcement, no diplomatic channel, no red tape, just wrath. The slaver's skiff was caught mid-orbit, still tethered to their mother ship. Both vessels were vaporized before their crews could even scream. Atmospheric fire painted the sky. Thunder rumbled from space itself, and then Earth made its broadcast, a simple message broadcast on every open channel in the quadrant, repeated in 42 languages. The Alari people are now under Earth's protection. Any act of aggression against them will be treated as an act of war. We do not forget those who protect our own. The galaxy heard it loud and clear, but down on the ground, inside a simple straw-roofed hut, the boy held Tommen's hand as the old Alari groaned through another fever. Medics worked fast, Earth's finest. They'd never seen alien biology like this, but they tried anyway. The boy didn't cry, he didn't speak. He just stared at the man who bled for him, and Earth stared with him because kindness from the weak had awoken. Vengeance in the strong. The rain fell quietly that evening, not the heavy kind that pounds roofs and drowns fields, but the soft, unrelenting drizzle that seemed to mourn. The Alari village sat in a hush, like the land itself was holding its breath. Where laughter once echoed through the grassland valleys, now only silence lingered sharp and aching. Inside the largest hut, Tommen's breathing was shallow, every exhale strained, every movement met with pain. His chest, wrapped in smart mesh bandages infused with regenerative compounds, rose and fell like fragile parchment. He was asleep, if one could call it that, his body in recovery, his spirit caught between two worlds. The boy sat beside him, unmoving, small fingers tightly gripping Tommen's elongated hand. The Alari skin had palled since the attack, veins faintly glowing beneath the surface in faint green hues, a side effect of the regenerative serum being forced into a biology that was never meant for it. A human soldier stood silently at the entrance, Lieutenant Rivas, a Batley, hardened ground operative who had seen more planetary drops and plasma wounds than most in the 7th Fleet. But even he couldn't stop glancing at the boy. The kid had stopped crying a day ago. That was the part that got to Rivas most. Crying meant someone still believed someone could fix things. Silence meant something inside had broken. He stepped closer and crouched. "Hey, kid." The boy didn't respond. "He's tough, your friend. I've seen men 10 times his size fold under that kind of pain." Still nothing. Rivas let out a long breath and reached into the chest pocket of his armored vest. He pulled out a small item, worn metal tarnished by age, the dog tag. "Found this," he said, placing it next to the boy on the mat. "Nar the wreck. Yours." The child finally looked up, eyes swollen red, hollow. He nodded once. "Names on the back, wanted to confirm before we logged it." Rivas didn't push more, he just stood up and walked out, letting the quiet return. The dog tag sat between them like a shard of memory, the name on the back read Andre Ward. Later that night, the sky above the village shimmered, massive orbital cruisers adjusted position. Earth's 7th Fleet had deployed a perimeter wall of warships around the planet, fully armed, ready to intercept anything with a pulse signature that wasn't human or verified. The message wasn't subtle. Touch the child again and you die. Touch his people and your planet dies. Elsewhere, far above the Alari home world, the Galactic Diplomatic Assembly, a bloated council of half-interested species, each with their own bloated interests, was in panic mode. 100 species watched the footage of Earth's response on a loop. A simple, peaceful species had protected a human child, and Earth had deployed a military umbrella capable of glassing 5 sectors in under an hour. This wasn't diplomacy, this was ownership. Sheer barbarism, hissed the Agari high chair, tentacles twitching in frustration over a single child. Sheer loyalty, said the Van Consul, a stoic insectoid who'd studied human war history. You would do well to understand what that means to them, but they're extending protection to a non-member species. Another alien barked. That is what should terrify you most, came the Reply: because Earth had always been strategic. Cold, calculated, never made moves. Without protocol, but this time it moved. For emotion, and that made it unpredictable, which made it dangerous. Back on the ground, Tommen stirred. His chest rose suddenly with a gasp, and his fingers twitched. The boy snapped. Awake, Tama, the old Aryan faintly. His eyes barely opening, his pupils glowed faintly in the dark. You're here, Tommen hummed, voice weak and cracked. The boy nodded, and without speaking curled into his side. Carefully, a child's hug, small but fierce. I thought I had failed you, Tommen whispered. You didn't. Simple words, spoken slowly, but they broke something. In the old Ari's composure, his hand trembled as it rested on the boy's back. I am glad the stars did not take you. The next day, the boy stood before the Fleet Marshal herself, a steely woman, with gray in her braid and scars on her knuckles. Her name was Nadia Ward, Andre's great-aunt. She stared at him long and hard. You're my blood, she said bluntly. The beacon in your neck was military issue. Your parents served. Both killed on the colony sweep 5 months ago. We thought you went with them. I didn't, the boy said, voice flat. You survived the crash alone, and these people took you in. He nodded. They saved me. Tama saved me. The old Ari stood beside him, one hand resting on a cane, still healing, still pale. Marshal Ward turned to T-Men. You could have sold him, traded him, hell, just left him. You didn't. Tommen didn't reply. You're not warriors. You had no weapons, and yet you shielded him. I need to know why. Tommen looked at the boy, then back to the marshal. Because he was scared. Because he cried. Because he is a child. Ward didn't blink. You know what you've done, don't you? I have done what is right. She turned to her staff. Mark the Alari home world as Class A. Human protected, immediate Nafli zone. Authorized surface outposts, permanent. Fleet presence and economic reconstruction. Tommen blinked slowly. What does that mean? It means the marshal said, looking him in the eye. Anyone lays a finger on your people again, and Earth answers with fire. Tommen didn't smile, but the boy did. Weeks passed. The slaver ring that had attacked the Alari was hunted down. System by system, Earth offered no trials, no capture, just precise annihilation. Satellite feed leaked of black ships descending on slaver dens and turning them to glass. The galaxy called it overkill. Earth called it justice. Andre stayed with the Ari. The military offered to take him boarding schools, training programs, education. He refused. He stayed with Tommen. He helped with crops, learned their songs, and taught them how to build signal jammers and shield drones. In turn, they taught him patience, compassion, stillness. He was changing but not forgetting. Sometimes he'd climb to the ridge at sunset, stare at the sky, and whisper to the wind, you shouldn't have touched him. You shouldn't have touched me. One day, Earth's diplomatic division sent a representative to negotiate with the galaxy. Was furious. Dozens of species protested Earth's decision to adopt a peaceful species into their protected status. It set a precedent that made everyone nervous. They're not part of your jurisdiction, the delegate said. Marshal Ward was present. Her voice was cold steel. They are now on what basis? On the basis that one of yours saw value in his life and gave their own to protect it, and that is a debt Earth will pay. You're protecting them because of sentiment? No, she said, because of principle, because one act of kindness demands 10 acts of vengeance, and we haven't paid enough yet. In the decades to come, no one dared touch the Alari. They grew peacefully, their technology advancing with Earth's help, their songs filled the stars, trade boomed, their villages became cities, but still quiet, still open, still kind. Andre grew tall, taller than Tommen, human frame, Ari. Spirit, a bridge between two species. One night, years later, Tommen lay dying, no wounds this time, just age. Andre sat beside him again, now a man. You saved me, he whispered. Tommen smiled, thin and tired. You saved me. Back, I didn't do anything, you stayed. Andre held his hand one last time. Tommen's glow faded as the stars rose. And in orbit, Earth's warship stood. Silent, unblinking, watching over a species that had once made us simple. Joyce, protect the child. And Earth had answered, then we will protect you until our last star dies. The cities rose like polished stones, carved from the land, seamlessly grown. From Alari architecture and human engineering, where once there had been woven huts and open fires, now stood bioglass towers and energy-efficient domes humming gently beneath the light of the twin moons. The Alari world, once dismissed as backwater and irrelevant, now pulsed with life and trade, thanks to Earth and to Andre Ward, who walked its streets not just as a man, but as a living symbol. He was 27 now, broad-shouldered, sharpied with a voice that carried authority whether he meant it to or not. He wore no medals, no rank, but when he entered a room, people stood. He lived between worlds, Ari soul, human blood. Tommen had been gone 5 years now. Andre still visited his grave every week. Simple stone carved with 2 languages. No titles, just a name, and the words he gave without asking, we protect. Without limit. That morning a message came through the secured channel, not military grade but private. Still the encryption told Andre it came from high up. He read the lines once, then again. His jaw tightened. Fleet Marshal Nadia Ward was coming, and she wasn't coming alone. They landed 2 hours later, a full diplomatic entourage, flanked by the black armored commandos of Earth's elite guard, the Resolute Blade. Still, the flagship of the 7th Fleet hovered high above the atmosphere like a god waiting to be called down. Andre met her at the arrival platform. At Nadia, he said, voice flat, don't call me that when I'm in uniform. You're always in uniform. She gave the faintest flicker of a smile. Some things don't change. He gestured towards the spire behind him. Let's talk somewhere private, inside the old Ariel, converted now into a center of council. They sat beneath the ancient crystal roots of the singing tree. The air carried a soft hum, the kind only Ari could truly feel. Andre could almost sense it too, almost. Nadia placed a small hollow disc on the table and activated it, a system map projected into the air. 10 colonies, 2 trade routes, 1 disputed border. The projection zoomed in on a dull gray planet at the edge of the map. Karis 4. Raiders again? Andre asked. She shook her head. Worse, this was a diplomatic envoy Alari trade mission, ambushed on re-entry, 4 dead, 1 survivor, the rest taken. Where? We tracked the signal trail to Nori space, and that's the problem. Andre exhaled slowly. The Nakari Confederation was a political powerhouse, cold, calculating, and utterly pragmatic. They didn't care about morals. They cared about rules, and Earth had been bending those rules for years. We told them to release the prisoners. Nadia continued. They refused, claimed. The Alari violated entry protocol. That's a lie, I know, but it's a convenient one, and now we're at a crossroads. Andre leaned forward. You want me to speak on Earth's behalf? No, she said, eyes narrowing. I want you to speak on the Ari's behalf. You're the only one the Confederation might listen to. You're Ari enough to pass human. Enough to be feared. That's not diplomacy. It's survival. 3 days later, Andre stood before the N'Kari Council, flanked by 2 Ari elders and a silent human security detail. The N'Kari speaker, a glistening, ill-skinned creature named Vorin Tallow, regarded Andre with flat yellow eyes. You come bearing demands, Ward. I come bearing truth, Andre said calmly. Your border patrol murdered 4 Ari and kidnapped 9 more. We want them back. The Arari vessel entered restricted space. You forged the logs. We have the originals, your own trade station confirmed it. A mistake. Perhaps a massacre. For Intel's gaze flicked to the human guards behind Andre. Earth has made many enemies in the past decade. You cannot shield every pet species you adopt forever. Andre stepped forward, voice dropping to a low growl. They are not pets, they are people, and they bled for us when they had no reason to. Earth repays its debts. Earth oversteps. Maybe, Andre said, but we don't bluff. He tapped a command on his wrist. Secondary holo map appeared. 10 N'Kari trade outposts lit up in red, each one now under surveillance by Earth's fleet. This is what overstepping looks like. Vorental's mouth twitched. Is this a threat? No, Andre said, it's a promise. You have 24 hours. Release the prisoners, or the trade routes you depend on go dark permanently. Back on the Arari home world, the atmosphere shifted. Ari elders had gathered in private chambers. Some whispered that Earth's protection was no longer a gift but a chain. That Earth spoke with fire, not wisdom. That Andre was no longer one of them, but a weapon Earth had sharpened and set loose. You must be careful, said Elder Ryla, one of the few who remembered the time before the boy came. What you do now echoes forever. Andre listened, but inside he was boiling. They had taken Ari lives. They had touched his people again. He would not wait for a war to start. 23 hours later, the N'Kari released the prisoners. No apology, no explanation. Just bodies returned in sealed pods and a brief message: we will not forget this humiliation. Andre watched the pods unload one by one. Some Ari walked out, shaken, weak, but alive. Others did not. Tom and Sister Eli's lay in one of the caskets. Gentle teacher, a weaver, dead. Burn marks on her neck. No dignity, no honor. Andre didn't speak at the funeral. He didn't need to. His silence said everything. That night he climbed to the ridge. Alone, the stars shone above him, cold and distant. He sat on the grass where he used to play as a boy, looking up at the fleet that still hung in orbit like a guardian angel with a blade. He whispered like he had years ago, you shouldn't have touched them. The next day Andre left the planet. He had work to do. Earth had kept its vow, but now it was his turn, because peace kept the Alari safe, but fear kept them untouched, and Andre was ready to become the reason the galaxy stayed afraid. Cold void of space had a stillness that Earth never did. No winds, no birds, no ambient hum of cities, or whispered Alari. Songs. Just silence, heavy and endless, pressing against the hull of the diplomatic cruiser as it drifted past. The edge of the Vel sector, Andre Ward stood at the observation window, hands clasped behind his back, no uniform, no insignia, just a black coat the same color as the ship, his eyes reflecting the burning edge of a red dwarf star. Behind him a soft chime. Encrypted line from Sol Command, the A. Murmured. Andre didn't turn around. Patch it. Fleet Marshal Nadia Ward's voice came through crisp and clipped. The Nari have cut their comms. We believe they're moving ships toward the neutral zone. They won't fire first. I know that, she said, but the assembly is watching. If we retaliate again, we'll have every non-aligned species crying imperialism. They cried the same when we put a defense ring around the Alari. Andre, you asked me to speak for them. Let me. You're not just a diplomat anymore. I never was. The cruiser docked at Station Karnos, a once neutral outpost now soaked in quiet tension. Guards from 5 different species patrolled the halls. No one smiled. Everyone watched their corners. Andre walked through with deliberate calm, flanked by a single Ari translator. Vela tall, soft-spoken, and skeptical of every step they took. You shouldn't be here, she said as they approached the council chamber. They've taken Alari lives twice. That makes it personal. You speak as a soldier, not a speaker. I speak as both. Vela's face twitched, somewhere between worry and resignation. Inside the chamber, the air was thick with politics. Representatives from over 20 star systems sat in raised alubs. The Nakari, the Van, the Kagori Combine, even the neutral Krath, each with a stake in not letting Earth rule by fear. Andre didn't wait to be addressed. He stepped forward into the circle. You all know why I'm here, so I'll speak plainly. That got their attention. 5 weeks ago, a peaceful Aravoy was slaughtered by Nakari patrols. 11 lives were lost. One of them was my kin. He paused, let the silence stretch. 1. Heartbeat. 2. You think we're here to posture that Earth wants war, but the truth is simpler than that. He turned toward Vorental, who watched him with a cold smirk. You violated a protected species' rights. That's not just politics, that's blood. And Earth doesn't forget blood. Earth forgets balance, Vorental replied. Calmly, you use sentiment as justification for supremacy. Andre tilted his head. Supremacy? No, we're not claiming dominion. We're honoring a debt by surrounding a peaceful race with warships. No, Andre said, voice quiet, by making sure no one ever touches them again. The room chilled. A CR diplomat leaned forward. And what of Ari autonomy? Is protection not just another form of control? Andre didn't flinch. Ask the ones who buried their sisters, their sons. Ask them if they'd prefer diplomacy over the shields that kept them alive the next day. You speak as if Earth is their only hope, another delegate said. No, Andre said, I speak as someone who knows this. Galaxy doesn't care about the weak until they become inconvenient. He let the words hang heavy before continuing. The Ari didn't ask for our guns. They didn't ask for orbiting fleets. They only ever gave kindness. The weapons came after you gave us blood. Meeting adjourned in diplomatic fog. No resolution, just eyes narrowed and notes taken. Andre didn't stay for the formal ending. He walked out in silence. Vela caught up to him in the corridor. They hate you, she said. I'm not here to be liked. They think you're turning the Ari into a puppet state. He stopped walking, turned to face her. Do you think that? She looked away. I think we lost something when you grew up. Andre stared at her. We lost people. I'm making sure we don't lose more. You've become Earth's blade. They earned it. Did we? He didn't answer. Back on the cruiser, Andre stared at the hologram of his home world. It had changed. Cities now, not villages. Energy grids, trade hubs orbiting docks, a Larry youth growing up learning multiple languages, being sent off-world for education, returning with uniforms and neural implants. Some called it progress, others called it assimilation. Andre didn't know what to call it anymore. He remembered running through fields barefoot, chasing wind kites, laughing under the twin moons. Now those same fields held training facilities and data towers. Was this protection or something else? Earth High Council summoned him next, not to reprimand but to praise. You've become a symbol, one member said, for our foreign strategy. You've proven our alliances mean something, another added. Nadia watched in silence as they spoke. She'd seen what this did to soldiers, the way power warped people. Andre wasn't power hungry, but he was driven, and the galaxy wasn't done testing him yet. Junior counselor leaned forward. We want you to lead the diplomatic corps for protected worlds. Andre blinked. That's not my role. It is. Now you want me to be your voice? No. The chairwoman said, we want you to be our silence, the one that makes people nervous when Earth says nothing at all. Weeks passed. Andre traveled across systems, negotiating new alliances, settling border disputes, ending pirate syndicates with a quiet nod. His name carried weight. His presence meant escalation. Often just showing up was enough, but every time he returned home, the felt farther away. The children still played, the elders still sang, but their eyes had changed. The young ones looked at the sky too much. Some spoke more in Terran standard than in the old Ilari tongue. Tommen statue stood in the capital now, twice the height of any building, arms open, gaze soft, a symbol of unity. Andre stared at it one night from a balcony. Did we protect them? He whispered. Or did we consume them? Trouble came from within. A splinter group Ari purists bombed a local Terran trade office. No casualties, but the message was clear. Return our skies. Return our songs. Earth's response was swift. Counterintelligence. Surveillance nets, quiet arrests, but Andre intervened. No executions, he told the planetary governor. No disappearances, not here. They're insurgents, they're afraid. Governor scoffed. You sound like one of them. I am. He met with the purists himself. No guards, no weapons, just a quiet room and a name that made them hesitate. Their leader, a sharp-eyed Ari named Satin, stared him down. You are a ghost of our people, Satin said, born of earth, bred in fire, speaking peace with hands soaked in blood. Andre didn't flinch. You're angry. You should be. We were never meant to be a fortress world. We were never meant to be slaughtered either. Satan stepped closer. You want us to survive as shadows. We want to live as ourselves. I want you to live, period. You can't protect us and control us. Ward, that's not protection, that's colonization. Andre left without speaking further, but the words followed him. At night he dreamed of fire again of that first night, the slavers, the screaming, the blood soaking into Tommen's robes, the cold stars above, the way Earth came. Not as saviors but as retribution. He hadn't just survived that night, he had been forged in it, and now he wondered what he'd become. The bomb wasn't large, but it was precise. At exactly 2:11 Planetary Standard Time, a pulse detonated inside Terran Embassy Tower 3, the communications relay hub in the heart of the Alari capital. 3 decks were obliterated, 6 Terran staff members dead, 23 wounded, dozens of Arari civilians caught in the blast radius. Andre Ward stood in the rubble. 12 hours later, boots crunching over broken glass and debris, smoke still hissing from shattered conduits. The blast pattern was too clean to be amateur work. This wasn't rage, it was strategy. Governor Elren met him at the site, jaw tight, sleeves rolled up, the scorch marks still visible on his uniform. Purist cell, he said flatly. Same network that bombed the trade office, we've confirmed it. Andre didn't look at him. Where's the response team? Already mobilized. We've traced the cell to the lower eastern arc slums near the old Rigel lines. We move in 2 hours. Andre finally turned. 2 hours, why not now? Lauren hesitated. Because I was told to wait for your approval. There it was again, that wait, the unspoken truth. His voice had become Earth's trigger. Back at the command post, Andre studied the dossier. The purists were growing, no longer just angry youth scribbling slogans in alleyways. They were organized now. Funded, armed, Seton, the leader, had disappeared 2 days ago, last seen speaking at a quiet vigil near the singing tree, then vanishing into the underground. Andre knew what was coming next. Earth would call it pacification. The Alari would call it occupation, and both might be right. He activated the encrypted channel. Get me Marshall Ward. Nadia's image blinked into view a moment later, her hair tied back, her face unreadable. You saw the report? He asked. I did. They want to send drop teams. They're already prepping. Tell them to stand down. She raised an eyebrow. You're protecting terrorists now. I'm protecting the fragile peace we've spent a decade building. Andre, this isn't about revenge. It's about being smart. If we hit them like this, we don't stop a rebellion. We light it. She didn't respond immediately. You're too close to this, she said. Finally, I've always been too close. That's why it worked. More silence. Then a sigh. You have 48 hours. Solve it your way. After that, I step in. That night, Andre entered the lower arc alone. No armor. No guards, just a black coat and a name. Eyes watched him from shadows. Ari faces etched with dirt, fear, suspicion. Old homes repurposed into hideouts. Children that didn't look at him like a savior but like a threat. He found Satan inside a derelict structure that once served as a school. The doors were gone, the windows shattered. Inside, a fire burned low, and around it sat 6 armed. Every weapon pointed at him. The moment he stepped in, he raised his hands. I'm not here for war. Too late, Satan said from the back. You brought it years ago. You're just realizing it now. Andre stepped forward slowly. You killed civilians. Seton's gaze didn't flinch. We struck a symbol, Earth's tower, its voice. You struck innocent people, collateral-like. We were. Andre stopped, jaw tight. You think this helps your cause? It makes people listen. It makes people die. Said and stood, now they already do. Quietly under your protection, what are? We now ward, a memory with a leash around its throat. The room was tense, one twitch away from bloodshed. Andre took a slow breath. I didn't come here to threaten you, then. Why come at all, to give you a chance to stop this before Earth burns this district down? Seton stepped closer and, if we don't, then I won't be the one they send next. That landed because no one wanted the Terran enforcers in their streets. Seton looked away. We want our skies back. You can have them, but not like this. Another pause. I'll think on it, Satin finally said. Andre turned to go. The weapons didn't lower until he was halfway down the street. He returned to the tower. Lauren was waiting. Well, the governor asked there. Willing to talk. For how long? I bought us 48 hours, and after that. Andre didn't answer. Back in his quarters, Andre stood before the mirror. His reflection stared back. Older than he remembered, eyes harder. Jaw set like his father's once was. How had it come to this? He thought of Tammin. Would he have understood? Or would he have been disappointed? A chime interrupted the silence. Vela, she entered without a word, her expression tired. You went to them, she said. I had to, do. You trust them? I don't trust anyone. Right now, she walked past him to the window, gazing out at the city below. Lights blinking, patrol drones humming. This wasn't what we wanted, she whispered. I know you were our symbol. Andre, now you're just another soldier. He didn't deny it. I never asked to be a symbol, but we needed one. He joined her at the window. Maybe you still do. She looked up at him, then be one again. Before all this burns. The next morning, the Purists released a statement denouncing violence but refusing to disband. They called for open negotiations, partial demilitarization, and Ari cultural sovereignty. It was a start, but Earth saw it differently. The Terran High Council responded with a statement of their own. We will not negotiate with armed extremists. Disarmament is the only path to dialogue. Andre read both declarations in silence, then made a choice. He stood before the planetary broadcast channel that evening. No script, no official seal. Just a man and a camera. He spoke plainly to the Alari, to Earth, to the galaxy. I am Andre Ward. I was a child when the Alari saved my life. They did not ask who I was, what I could offer, or what I would become. They gave me kindness. I vowed Earth would protect them in return, but somewhere along the way we started protecting more than lives. We started protecting control, influence, power, and in doing so, we forgot the cost. The Alari do not need saviors. They need space to grow, to choose, to err, to rise again. We offered them a shield. We cannot let that shield become a cage. To those who think violence is the answer, I ask you to stop. We cannot honor life by destroying it. To Earth, I ask this. Let us be protectors again, not conquerors. To everyone listening, know this. The Alari are not Earth's shadow. They are Earth's debt, and debts must be honored with dignity. The feed cut. The message spread within hours. Some called him brave, others called him a traitor. Nadia Ward called last. You just declared war on protocol, she said. I declared peace. She didn't scold him. She didn't threaten him. She just sighed. You've changed, Andre. No, I've remembered who I was. 2 days later, Satin walked into the Capital unarmed, he met with Andre under the singing tree. He offered a list. Safe disarmament zones, cultural council. Proposal, shared governance terms. Earth didn't approve, not officially. But they didn't interfere, because sometimes diplomacy isn't forged. Silence or steel, sometimes it's forged by those willing to stand between a sword and the ones it was meant to protect. The morning after Seddon's disarmament proposal, the city felt different. The sirens were silent. No gunships patrolled the skies. No drones hovered low over the markets. For the first time in months, Ari children played without flinching at shadows. Andre Ward stood at the edge of the city's western district, the same place he had once run barefoot as a boy, wind kites flapping in the air above him. Now those fields were cleared, ready to become something new, a neutral ground, a place where both Ari and Terran councils could sit as equals, or at least that was the plan. The transmission came at 700. Fleet Marshal Nadia Ward's voice was colder than usual, not angry, not emotional, just official. You are hereby ordered to report to Saul. Command for reassignment and debriefing. Effective immediately, a replacement. Envoy will assume all liaison duties too. The Ari system. Andre stared at the screen, jaw clenched. They weren't asking him to come home, they were pulling him out. Neutralizing him. Governor Elrin arrived 2 hours later with a full unit of Terran enforcers. Their black armor gleamed like oil under the morning sun. This isn't personal, Lauren said. Andre looked him in the eye. Yes, it is. You disobeyed fleet command. You brokered unauthorized agreements with extremists. You embarrassed the High Council. I saved this planet from civil war. Lauren gave a bitter laugh. You saved your memory of it, not the reality. Behind him, the enforcers stood silent. One of them, a younger soldier with a scar down his neck, flinched when Andre looked his way. You're going to force me onto a transport? Andre asked. Lauren hesitated. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Andre didn't move. The Ari are watching. They've seen worse. Andre turned to the crowd gathering nearby. Dozens of civilians, old and young, silent, confused, afraid. Some remembered what it looked like when the ships first came, when Earth had arrived not as saviors but as avengers. Now they were here again, but this time the blade pointed inward. Andre raised his hand slowly. I'll come. Peacefully. Lauren nodded, smart. They took his credentials, his command codes, even his access to the planetary system was locked. His datapad blinked red every time he tried to access a file. He wasn't under arrest, he was being erased. The transport off-world was silent. He sat alone in the passenger bay, wrists unbound but reputation shackled. Soldier, the same scarred one from before, sat across from him, helmet resting in his lap. Your Ward, the soldier finally said. I was. You're the reason they didn't burn this place down 5 years ago. Andre shrugged. They still might. The soldier nodded. Slowly, my mother's Ilari. She doesn't talk much about the old days, but she always said your name like a prayer. Tell her to stop. Why? Because prayers end in disappointment. The soldier didn't reply. Back on Earth, the capital of Saul Command was the same. As always, gleaming towers, precision schedules, the rhythm of an empire in motion, but Andre felt like a ghost. Walking through it, they brought him straight to the tribunal. Not a Courtroom but a review panel, 3. High Council members, 2 Fleet Commanders and Fleet Marshal Nadia Ward. At the head, she didn't look at him. The questioning was methodical. Why did you engage in direct negotiations with an armed faction? Why did you publicly criticize Earth's protective doctrine? Why did you override orders from your superior officers? Andre answered every question the same way: to prevent war. But they didn't want that answer. They wanted compliance. They wanted an apology. Andre gave them silence instead. Finally, Nadia spoke. Your career with the diplomatic corps is over. I figured you're being reassigned to a civilian liaison program, Earthmers. Refugee integration, no command access, no diplomatic privileges. So I'm being benched. You're being removed before you destroy what we've built. Andre stood. You think I'm the threat? I think you forgot your place. No, he said, stepping forward. I remembered it. He leaned on the table, voice low. My place was with the people who saved me, the ones who took me in when I was bleeding and scared and alone, the ones who never asked for anything in return. You turned their gift into a weapon, their world into a forward base, their culture into a checklist. You're emotional, another counselor said. I'm human, you're unstable. I'm the only one who didn't forget why we came there in the first place. Nadia's jaw tightened. You're dismissed, Ward. They didn't arrest him, they just buried him under irrelevance. But they should have known better. The next night, Andre slipped into the underlevels of Saul City. No bodyguards, no shadows. He met with a woman named Ra Talon, a former fleet analyst now working off-grid. Thought you'd be in exile, she said. I am, just not geographically. She passed him a data chip. What is it? Everything they didn't want you to see. Surveillance logs, policy changes, deployment patterns. They're building something near the Ari system. Something big. Andre narrowed his eyes. Why? Ra looked at him grimly. Because they think the Ari alliance is breaking. He returned to his apartment in Sector 17. He was supposed to be under quiet watch, house restriction, but no one stopped him because no one thought he was still dangerous. He studied the chip all night. His hands trembled as he read the logs. New orbital defense platforms, reinforced garrisons, a contingency plan, labeled Project Silence, a full-scale lockdown protocol. Seton was right. They weren't protecting anymore. They were preparing to take control permanently. 2 days later, he disappeared. Earth's news feeds claimed he left on a private freighter to Mars, but the truth was simpler. Andre Ward went rogue, and when he resurfaced weeks later, it wasn't on Earth. It was back on the Alari home world. Seton met him near the ridge, the same place where the stars had once burned, above a wounded boy and an alien with a kind heart. You came back. They're coming too. How long? Not long enough. Seton handed him a small bracelet, Ellery woven, ancient in design. We've begun preparing not for war but to endure what comes. Andre looked at the distant horizon. They'll paint you as the threat. We always were. Andre turned to him. Then let's make sure the story they write next time isn't in Terran ink, because Earth had forgotten one thing: when you forge a weapon out of pain and loyalty, out of gratitude and fury, you'd better make damn sure it never turns around. The stars above the Alari home world no longer felt safe, where once they danced freely in twin moons and gentle auroras. Now they were eclipsed by metal dark silhouettes of orbiting Terran. Platforms, satellites, and automated warships. Earth hadn't declared war, they didn't need to, they simply began to tighten the grip. Checkpoints, trade inspections, communication delays, quiet arrests, no official orders, no visible aggression. Just the steady presence of power, reminding the Alari who ruled the sky. And still, Andre Ward moved like a ghost. Through it all, the former protector, the once loved symbol of Earth's loyalty, now hunted by the very machine he once served, but he was not alone. In the deep woods beyond the ridge where Tammin had once lived, an old cavern had been converted into a hidden assembly. Tables lined with data pads, holograms, flickering of regional maps, encrypted, signals bouncing between devices cobbled from Terran tech and Ari crystal, and at the head of the room stood Satan, flanked by other rebel leaders, not just Ari now but 3 other species, each of them former recipients of Earth's protection, the Varani, a reptilian merchant race whose trade hubs were now taxed into collapse, the Muroth, once pacifists, now forced to conscript their youth into Earth-sponsored security roles, and the Tari whose planet had been marked as a cultural zone and turned into a tourist shrine to Terran ideals, all had seen what the Alari now saw. That Earth's loyalty came with ownership. We can't match them ship for ship, Seton said, pointing at the orbital diagram projected above the war table. And they'll crush us in open combat. We won't give them open combat, Andre said. The others turned toward him. The goal isn't to win a war, it's to make one impossible. He tapped his own data pad and the projection shifted, showing not just ships but networks, supply chains, signal relays, command centers. Earth doesn't fear violence, they fear chaos. They fear losing control. Disruption, muttered the Tari tactician. Target what they depend on to maintain presence. Exactly, Andre said. We don't fight their army, we make it useless. In the following days the plan unfolded. Satellite convoys in orbit began going dark, not destroyed, just corrupted. Data loops, signal bleed. The orbiting fleets began to lose sync. On the ground, engineers used harmless atmospheric pulses to scramble Terran drone flight paths, sending patrols useless circles or causing phantom alerts that drained resources. Terran resupply convoys found their fuel reserves drained by local siphons are routed through Arik aquifer systems. Nothing could be proven, but everything stopped working, and all the while Earth couldn't find Andre because he never stayed in one place, never used the same channel twice. His face became a symbol again, not on banners but in whispers passed from village to village, station to station. He came back, he hasn't given up, we are not alone. Earth's High Council convened in panic. Fleet Marshal Nadia Ward stood before them, face harder than stone, her name now carrying the burden of the man she had once raised through the ranks. He is coordinating a network beyond the Eri. This isn't an isolated cell anymore, it's a coalition. Then break it, one counselor barked. We have the tech, the soldiers, the orbitals, and if we crush them, Nadia snapped, if we land boots on their temples and tanks in their gardens, we make him a martyr, and martyrs don't die. Silence. Then the oldest counselor leaned forward, voice grave. Then make him disappear before he becomes one, Andre knew the kill order had been signed even before his contacts confirmed it. He felt it in the quietness of the systems, in the way his former colleagues stopped denying his name existed, in the fact that old friends no longer returned his messages, not from betrayal but from fear. And still he pushed forward, because this wasn't just about the Aleri anymore. This was about everyone Earth had saved, then smothered. 2 nights later he met with Valor again, this time in the remains of the old singing tree shrine. The leaves no longer hummed, the roots had been scorched in a Terran accident. Drone misfire during a patrol simulation. She sat quietly beside him, her robes stained with dust, her hands weathered from weeks of rebuilding shelters and helping refugees escape the inner city. They're evacuating entire districts, she whispered, calling it relocation for public safety. No one believes them anymore, he nodded. That's why we have to move faster. She looked at him, really looked at him. Her eyes were tired, her expression more sorrowful than angry now. You've changed, he smiled faintly. That's what everyone keeps saying. I remember the boy who cried when the slavers came, who clung to Tammin and sang with the younglings at night. He looked down at the roots of the tree. He died the day Tammin bled for him. She placed a hand on his shoulder. No, Andre, he lived, but you buried him. He said nothing because deep down he knew. She was right. That same night an alert buzzed across the rebel command net. A Terran observation ship had gone silent over Isra's belt, a neutral asteroid field used for deep signal calibration. The telemetry was scrambled, set in red. The reportant frowned. Bait, Andre nodded. They want me to come out, and he looked around the table. Ari, Tari, Meath, Varani, faces marked by grief, but lit with resolve. Then let's give them what they want. The next day, a small vessel slipped into orbit over Isra's belt, old model, unarmed, faded markings from the early trade era, and inside alone sat Andre Ward. He patched into an open Terran channel and sent one sentence: I'm here, let's talk. They didn't respond, but they sent a team, not diplomats, ghost operatives. Black armor, no insignia, no names. Andre met them on a rock platform under a broken satellite dish. He didn't draw. He didn't run, he just stood there. One of the operatives stepped forward. Weapon low but ready. You've made a lot of people nervous, Ward. Good, you used to be one of us. I still am. Then why turn against Earth? Andre looked up at the stars. I didn't turn against Earth. I turned against what we became. The operative raised the weapon. You're too dangerous to leave alive. Andre smiled. Then it's a shame I didn't come alone. From the ridge, 6 cloaked figures emerged, rifles charged, high ground secured. The operative froze. Andre stepped forward close enough to see the man's face under the visor. Tell Nadia something for me, he said. The man hesitated. What? Andre leaned in. This isn't rebellion, it's redemption, and we're just getting started. The team withdrew. They didn't have orders for open combat, not with surveillance watching, not with a dozen species waiting to see who fired first. That same week, 3 new systems joined Andre's cause, the coalition of the forgotten. They began calling it. Whispers became signals, signals became banners. Earth's hand wasn't broken, but it was now shaking. And above the Ali home world, one of Earth's oldest orbiting battle stations, left over from the early protection era, suddenly blinked out of the fleet net when Terran forces sent a ping for its status. They received a single encrypted message. You were trusted, you were loved, and now we are awake. The skies above the Alari home world were no longer silent. Dozens of Terran battle cruisers floated in low orbit, their weapons primed but not fired. They formed a net of power, a noose disguised as protection, and below them the cities held their breath. Markets were empty, streets were silent. Older elders lit candles not for worship but in memory of peace that might never return. In the center of the capital, the Unity spire stood tall, half built by Aluri stone artisans, half by Terran steel workers. It had once been a beacon of cooperation. Now it was the headquarters of the Coalition of the Forgotten. Inside, Andre Ward stood before the final war table, surrounded by leaders from 11 species, each one with scars earned under Terran oversight. He spoke without a data pad, without a script. His voice was heavy but calm, like someone who had already made his peace. They'll strike today. The Murath delegate, her forearms folded in solemn preparation, nodded. Will it be orbital? They'll start small, Andre said. A warning shot. Precision strike, just enough to force us to kneel without full war. Satin spoke from across the table, eyes sharp. And if we don't kneel, Andre looked at him, then they'll burn this world to make an example. The Tari leader snorted. That's the Earth I remember. Vela, quiet for most of the meeting, finally stood. Her voice shook not from fear but from something deeper. Resolve. Then let it be the last world they ever try to burn. At 900 hours, a Terran broadcast cut through all channels. The High Council's representative, flanked by military command, stood in sterile silence. You are harboring fugitives, coordinating anti-Earth terrorism, undermining unity. This is your final warning. Disband the coalition, turn over Andre Ward, or suffer the consequences. No one on the ground replied, and that silence was the reply. At 9:31 hours, the first shot was fired. Kinetic rod from orbit, non-nuclear but deadly. It struck an abandoned freight platform outside the capital. No lives lost. But the message was clear. Earth was done waiting. Andre watched the strike from the roof of the Unity spire. He said nothing, just turned to Satan. Light it from the mountains to the oceans, across valleys and hidden caves. Hundreds of transmission towers flickered to life. They weren't weapons. They were voices, broadcasts, documentaries, confessions, testimonies. From across the galaxy, images of broken treaties, of cultural sites leveled. The name of efficiency, of families relocated to mining sectors under forced contracts. Each species that Earth had protected now told their stories in unfiltered truth, broadcasted back to Earth itself. In cities like New London, Neo-Tokyo, Soulspire, citizens watched in stunned silence. They'd never seen these parts. They'd only ever been told Earth was the benevolent guardian. Now they saw the wounded children, the burned temples, the forced conscriptions, and the faces of those Earth had saved and then silenced. By noon, the broadcasts had gone viral, not just among the oppressed systems, but within Earth's own military ranks. Thousands of soldiers saw the footage, and many of them recognized the faces. Some had pulled the triggers themselves. At 1300, Fleet Marshal Nadia Ward received the report she had feared. Most mass desertions in 7th Fleet. Half the Murath garrison just dropped. Shield, 2 Varani escort ships are standing down. We're losing control. She sat alone in her war room, not speaking, not giving orders, just watching the footage. One video played on loop, a small Ari child covering a wounded human boy with his own blanket, humming a lullaby while gunfire echoed. In the background, her eyes burned. She hadn't seen that footage before. She hadn't wanted to. By 1500 hours, the 7th Fleet's front line refused to fire. Captains ignored orders, gunners disabled weapons. One battle cruiser turned off its comms completely and rotated to face Earth's core command ship in a silent act of defiance. And in the capital below, Andre Ward stood atop the Unity Spire, broadcasting live across the entire quadrant. He wore no armor, no weapon, just the old woven bracelet Tommen had once tied on his wrist, aged, fraying, and eternal. I was born a child of Earth, he said, saved by kindness, raised by strength, forged by memory. But Earth has forgotten that protection is not possession, that kindness is not control. You tried to erase us, not with bombs, but with silence, and now we speak, we sing, we rise. This is not an uprising. This is a remembering. The Ari stepped out of their homes, no weapons, just music, their voices humming the oldest of their songs spread across the hills, through the cities, across the open channels, and other species joined in, each singing in their own tongue, creating a harmony the galaxy had never heard, a rebellion without war, a battle without blood, a revolution made of memory. By 1700 hours, the High Council called in emergency vote. The outcome was unanimous. The Alari system was to be released from Earth's protection, not exiled, not conquered, recognized, autonomous. Andre watched the broadcast as it came. And he didn't cheer, he didn't weep, he just sat down on the steps of the spire, alone for a moment, as the world erupted in celebration. Seton found him an hour later, standing beneath the night sky. It's over, Satin said. Andre shook his head. No, it's just begun. Earth retreated quietly. No speeches, no apologies, but everyone knew they had blinked, and when they blinked they saw themselves for the first time. In the years that followed, the coalition of the Forgotten became something more. Council of Sovereigns, where every voice mattered, not out of fear but out of mutual dignity. The Alari rebuilt their temples. The Tari reopened their old libraries. The Murath stopped teaching obedience and began teaching history. And on the day the singing tree bloomed again, its roots regrown from ashes, a statue was raised beside it, not of Andre Ward but of Tammen, arms open, voice silent, stone eyes forever watching over the child he once saved. And somewhere in a quiet house by the river, a man sat carving a piece of wood. He had no rank, no title, just a bracelet on his wrist and a story in his heart. A story about a world that forgot kindness and a people that remembered. Story about what happens when you protect the right thing for the wrong reasons, and what happens when finally you get it right.